So frustrated, like, okay, I'm trying.
It's so hard. Uh-oh, we're being recorded, so oh, sorry.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome. My name is Sonia Rockville, and I am the principal and founder of Bedrock Real Estate Investors, a multifamily investment company. And I am thrilled to be the treasurer and a board member of the Council of Urban Real Estate. CURE has existed for almost 32 years, championing diversity and inclusion in the commercial real estate space. We are so excited to have all of you with us this evening to celebrate the last day of Women's History Month, to talk about HerStory and our fantastic and esteemed panel and their rise to the top. I have the honor of introducing the panel and moderator this evening by just reading some snippets of their very impressive resumes. Glenessa Gordon is the Assistant Director of Business Diversity Operations at the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey. In her role, Glenessa develops and implements strategies to maximize opportunities, increase the capacity, and ensure the success of minority women-owned small and disadvantaged business enterprises through opportunities within the Port Authority. Jessica Garman serves as the Chief Operating Officer and General Counsel of the Will Group, Inc. The Will Group is a pioneer company of several separate and distinct entities in the electrical, lighting, construction, technology, and energy-related industries that all operate under the common philosophy, where there's a will, there's a way. Marjorie Perry is the president and CEO of MZM Construction and Management Company, Inc. MZM is a full-service construction management and transportation company serving a wide variety of clients, from small companies to Fortune 500 companies, government agencies, nonprofits, educational institutions, and many others. And last but not least, Nakia Williams serves as the Associate General Counsel for a not-for-profit with a focus on real estate development and housing. Prior to her role, Nakia was a litigation associate at a prominent New York City law firm, and her practice focused primarily on construction law and commercial litigation. Nakia represented real estate owners, developers, design professionals, contractors, and other members of the construction industry in litigation and transaction matters. Very proud to have Nakia join us. She is our newest board member for the Council of Urban Real Estate. So just before I hand it over to her, I just want to give a special thank you to my fellow board member, Daniel Chatters, who was instrumental in organizing this event. Nakia, I'm passing it over to you.
Thank you, Sonia, for that wonderful introduction. The great Maya Angelou once wrote, "If you're always trying to be normal, you will never know how great you can be." The women that sit before us today on this panel have created seats at tables where none were offered to them, have created new spaces for the women that come after them to fill and to conquer. The women that sit before us today have reached what many may view as the pinnacle of success. I am greatly honored and humbled to be moderating a panel of such amazing women. So now let's get to it. My first question is for Marjorie. Currently, you're the CEO for MZM Construction. Can you tell us a bit about how you got started and what path led to your current role?
Well, thank you. First, let me just thank Kira for having me today, and thank you, Nakia, for all the conversations we've had thus far. Well, mine was unintentional fall into construction and construction management. I'm corporate trained, Johnson & Johnson and 3M. Became a little tired of working for corporate America, especially for non-movement back in the 80s. And I decided I wanted to be an entrepreneur. This wasn't my first chosen path, but from Newark, New Jersey, there was so much affirmative action going on at the time. And two partners walked up and said, "Hey, why don't we start a construction company?" Now, I was really good on the business management side. I had no idea what I was falling into for construction. But, you know, we got started and we won our first $50,000 contract with the Performing Arts Center here in Newark, New Jersey. And the rest is deep dive history. So we'll talk about that later. So that's how we got started in 1991.
Wow, that's awesome. That's a great story. Jessica or Glenessa, if you have anything to add.
Well, I can talk a little bit about how I got started, especially since I am in the construction or have been in the construction industry. I'm actually a civil engineer. That's my background. And I started out in construction for the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, first working on one of the, at that time, it was JFK 2000. And those of you who know about JFK now, is going through another renovation, a new JFK. So I got lucky in terms of meeting with someone who was interested in, and I'm hearing a lot of background noise. Is that my area or? Oh, okay, all right, sorry. Yes, it was just coming through a lot on the side. That's the joy of doing Zoom, the joy of technology, right? Yeah. So it was very interesting at the Port Authority. The Port Authority at that time, they did not have a lot of women, particularly engineers and Black women engineers. And Mike Messiah, who was the former chief of diversity of inclusion, was actually in human resources at that time. And he had directed or managed a program in order to increase the number of minorities who were in professional positions at the Port Authority. So going in with the program that he had, meeting someone like that who worked with the Port Authority, with him having that vision, it actually got me into the Port Authority. I worked in different areas, from the construction areas to project management, and now to the Office of Diversity and Inclusion. I think that what has led me to get here was ensuring that I had a number of mentors, and getting the education and being prepared for this particular role, or being ready to seize the opportunity when it came.
Oh, awesome. So actually, my next question is for you, Glenessa. So according to data collected by CNBC, Black women only make up a mere 1% of all high-level executives. Lack of diversity is definitely a key issue across the board. So how have you navigated and thrived over the course of your career, given this lack of diversity?
Well, one of the things, as I mentioned just a minute ago, is making sure that I had mentors, looking towards people who were in the positions that I wanted to go. Seeing people, luckily working for a government agency, we might be a little bit more diverse and strive to have a bit more diversity than possibly some private companies, but it's seeing people who were in that area, having those mentors, forming the relationship with the mentors, then seeing what was it I could control. And Port Authority does represent, or does mirror, corporate America. So I knew I had to be prepared for certain areas. I decided to go back and get my master's in engineering. I went back and got my MBA. I ensured that I had my professional engineering license, so nobody could say, well, you can't have this job because you don't have your license. Particularly when I was in the engineering department, in order to be a manager, you had to have your PE. So I made sure that I got my PE. And in some cases, with having certain mentors or certain people that I had formed relationships with, I was in that position and ready to take on those roles when they came up. They thought of my name because we had worked together on certain projects. And that was another way that I ensured that I moved up, was by working on projects with various people in certain positions, ensuring that I formed the relationship and keeping that relationship, or maintaining that relationship with them. And also joining certain organizations within the Port Authority as well as outside of the Port Authority. I think that also helped.
Oh, thank you. That's awesome. Jessica, so now I guess considering the lack of diversity in various fields, many of us often feel like we don't belong, or we're plagued by something that we identify as imposter syndrome. So has there been a point in your career when you felt like you didn't belong, or you've been plagued by imposter syndrome? And also, I guess a follow-up question would be, does this sort of thing go away as you become more senior, as you progress in your career?
That's a really good question, Nikia. Thank you for asking that. But before I start, I wanted to thank Cure, and also thank the fellow panelists. You all are impressive women. I just feel honored to be serving on a panel with you all. But imposter syndrome, it definitely is something that we think about, right? We look in the mirror and we do look different, especially in a predominantly white industry. We don't look like that as we look in the mirror. However, we do have a seat on the table. And so the company, the Will Group, just a little bit of background, is named after my grandfather. He was a domestic worker for a family in the South till he died when he was 86 years old. This was back to 1922. That was a very important time in history, because people like me and those on the panel, we weren't allowed to sit in certain rooms or eat at certain tables or even drink out of certain water fountains. But despite those barriers, my grandfather was so pivotal to the people that he worked for that they named their son after him. And to think back in 1922, to name your son after a boy who was of color, that was just groundbreaking. That was shifting the atmosphere. And so the company, the Will Group, our mantra is, where there's a will, there's a way, because where there truly is a will, there's a way. And my company, Industrial Electric Supply, I'm a partner with the Port Authority. So I know that partnerships like the Port Authority are what help me climb. I am going to lift as I climb. I do belong where I sit. And I also think about Michelle Obama's book, It's a great book that I hope we all have had a chance to read. But she did say that she used to lie awake at night and she would ask herself, she would say, am I too loud? Am I too much of a person? Do I dream too big? And I ask myself those same questions, but I try not to listen to those voices. I do belong. We all belong. And as I think about my girls, I have a 4-year-old and a 9-month-old girl, and also a 2-year-old boy. We are creating spaces for them. We're creating spaces for anybody that wants to have an accomplishment. You can reach your goal. May your reach exceed your grasp. And that's what I think about when I think about imposter syndrome. We will overcome it together. I visualize my success, and that to me is what's helpful.
Wow, you may be worthy of a standing ovation for that.
Oh my gosh, you're so
I think
sweet.
we all felt those words. Wow, yeah, I was definitely touched by that. I guess if we can take a step back for a second, you said the Will Group was founded by your grandfather. So I guess my question would be more so, how did you get started? How did you land in the role that you're in currently?
So the Will Group was founded by my father in 1986. It's named after my grandfather. So my grandfather was a domestic worker. He had a second grade education. He made $100 a month. So I am just honored that I could be in a place where I could work very hard and be in rooms that he couldn't sit in. But for me professionally, I started off as an attorney. I'm a recovering attorney. I like to say recovering because my mind is always thinking to be risk adverse. But as a business owner, you have to assess risk and take them. And so with my law degree, my law background, and growing up in the electrical industry and being around that, watching my father as an entrepreneur as well, that created that foundation, that strong foundation upon which I built up upon. I also had mentors as well that helped me be where I am today.
Oh, thank you for that. Marjorie, I'm not sure if you have anything to add, but if you do, we'd love to hear it.
No, pretty much what Glenessa and Jessica said. There was always one of the things that I did early on. Had my undergraduate degree, went back and did my MBA, took all of my courses to become a civil engineer because you have to know what you do know and what you don't know. And one thing I learned as I grew up, especially coming out of a heavy urban environment, is that if you're not ready by the time they call you, you're too late. So even though they didn't call you, you still have to be ready because the call will eventually come if you believe in it, just as Jessica talked about and Glenessa. I've always had majority partners that looked after me. The Port Authority has wrapped me up so many times. It's just ridiculous in terms of growth and accountability, opportunity, step in, because you have to have all of that. There's still such a pushback on women of color in our industry, you know, because we're just not taken seriously until you put your foot down and say, you will take us seriously. So I just wanted to pivot back to Jessica talking about the imposter syndrome. I think in the beginning, I had a little bit of that because I wasn't a traditional construction person. But then I learned that I was leaving so much money on the table because of that syndrome. So I had to become very, very positive within my own soul and my own spirit so that I knew that I belonged at the table. And if there was not a chair at the table, as the saying goes, I went and pulled up my own chair and brought myself to the table because I'm not leaving without my check. So, you know, Jessica's dead on with that. And Glenessa, you know, she's one of the people that has opportunities that brings us forward in those kinds of larger majority firms that we need at the table. And she's definitely one of those people at the table. So grateful for that.
Awesome. That's great. So I guess, Marjorie, you're going to stay in the hot seat. My next question's for you. So can you walk us through a day in the life of someone in your position? What are some of your responsibilities as a leader?
Well, you know, at the end of the day, I have right now currently 19 employees in the field. The average person makes $70 an hour. So the beginning of the week, we have to prep on how we're going to pay for that every single Thursday. So that means cost analysis. We have to sit down and just make sure that our numbers are on point. Lumber's gone through the roof. How do we pivot from that? So all of that takes care of on Monday morning. The second meeting is about, okay, team, where are we? What's wrong? What's the pain points? Where do we start to adjust? The third meeting of Monday is to find out how we're doing. What's the red zone? They're called red zones in a construction project. And we need to know where we are on the red zone, because we don't want anyone calling us saying, hey, listen, you're delaying a project that we have. And then probably around lunchtime, I try to now do a little meditation and prayer time in the morning, and then I do it again around 12:30, 1 o'clock, because sometimes the big boys come in very hard and heavy on me because I don't have male partners. So they just automatically assume I don't have a clue. And then I just go into battle mode. And then the end of the day, I try to work out in the gym. Because I find that if you're not strong mentally, physically, and spiritually, this is just not the game for the faint of heart for what we do in the construction and the construction management industry. So that's pretty much my day. And then maybe get some dinner with a date if I can manage to stay awake for some shrimp or something.
Sounds like a day.
That's a day. It's a full day.
How about you, Glenessa? Can you walk us through a day in the life of someone in your role?
Wow, I wish I had it as laid out as Marjorie does, especially hearing from today as well as yesterday, the whole meditation thing. I definitely need to incorporate that into my day. I can't just wait for a Sunday or Saturday or Friday. So I'm definitely going to take some of her pointers. But my days have gotten, and I need to take more control of it, because with us now, we are working really hard to increase participation from minority and women-owned firms. So we're working with, if you know anything about the Port Authority, we manage and own airports, the airports that are in the region, Newark, JFK, LaGuardia, Teterboro, and Stewart, the bridges between New York and New Jersey, iconic George Washington Bridge, the tunnels and the Staten Island bridges, path, the ports, as well as the World Trade Center, and some smaller properties or facilities throughout the region. So trying to ensure that we get participation on all of those areas, that there's, whether we're looking at construction, professional services, goods and services, trying to ensure that we get participation on all of those. So it also includes with working with my team to ensure that we certify firms, meetings to look at our productivity. How are we being productive in terms of certifying those firms, working with the line departments to encourage them to either set aside or to use one of our newer programs, which is a small contracts, discretionary contracts. I'm trying to negotiate, encourage them to put those contracts out for, again, minority and women-owned firms, trying to show them that we do have firms and businesses who are capable, qualified to do this work. Also working with the businesses themselves, looking to build them, to build their capacity, to ensure that they're successful, to respond to any issues that they may have, even though we do have these programs. And one of our priorities is diversity and inclusion. Some of our firms still have issues, and Marjorie knows because she's called me and I've had my team work with her to ensure that we took care of any of those issues. So advocating for our MWBs, that's another portion of the day. And sometimes answering questions for the executive director, Rick Cotton, who's really pushing this program in terms of showing him how we're performing, how we're meeting these goals. So it's a full day, and managing staff. That can take, that you never know what's going to happen in the day in terms of having a staff issue. I have a great staff, they're great advocates, but occasionally there's a staffing issue. So that gets to be a busy day. And so almost every day throughout the day, I'm working with these on these issues or in that space.
Oh, awesome, thank you. And Jessica, if you don't mind walking us through the day in the life of someone in your role as COO and General Counsel.
So I love that, Glenessa. You are the fixer. So if anyone's seen or heard of Olivia Pope, she truly is the fixer over there, because I always see, um, emails with her name on it, really, really fixing things. And my company, Industrial Electric Supply, we are supplying electrical products to the JFK American Airline Premier job. So I'm so grateful for her for making space for people like me. Sometimes and this is I'm just going to be honest. I believe that sometimes when someone may see a woman of color in electrical or construction, they'll assume that we don't know what we're talking about. I've gone to meetings, and a person has passed by me and gone to a male and asked him the electrical question, passing me up and assuming that I didn't know because of my appearance, right? And so that makes me even work even harder. So I just appreciate you, Miss Gordon, for everything you're doing and making space for people like me. But every day is different. It's not. Meditation is so important. For me, I love some good praise and worship music in the morning. I've got to get some time quiet before my kids wake up. But I will be out the door in the morning, and it's wherever my customer needs me to be, I'll be there. If it's at a job site, to check on the job, if it's at a shipment location, to make sure that my materials are properly packaged, that the packing labels are sufficient. As a MW and a DPE, there are specific requirements. So my legal background provides me with the wherewithal to ensure that I am compliant with the federal and the state statutes. So it's always wearing that hat. Whatever hat I need, I'll throw it on and make sure I get it done. So and also trying to make sure I drink my water and eat 3 square meals a day.
That's great. All right. So okay, that was great. So we're gonna move along. My next question is for Glenessa. So out of everything that you do in a day, in a week, in a year, what would you say is your favorite aspect of the role that you're in?
Wow. If just hearing from the women who are on this panel about how my job or what we do in my division, my department, and the agency, or my role, how it affects them. My favorite aspect is ensuring that we bring equity to the businesses that are in our region. When we look at the Port Authority, look at the locations of our operations, of our facilities, they are in areas, locations that are heavily minority. I don't have the exact numbers, but if we just look around when we're on the train, just took the train home, there's about 75% minorities on the train. If you look at who's using the tunnels and bridges, who's in the areas, minorities, we're the ones who are contributing to agencies such as the Port Authority. And that money should be going back into our communities. We should be building the communities, and we should not only the businesses, but the residents who are in the communities. So being an advocate for businesses, minority and women-owned businesses, as well as small businesses, regional businesses, people who are in the area, is seeing success, seeing them be successful on the contracts that we have, seeing when I hear about the dollar values that we've spent on contracts such as Newark contracts at Newark Airport, the dollar value that we've spent at LaGuardia, which is approximately $2 billion, has been spent with MWBEs mostly from this region. And that's my favorite role. And if I think about, a lot of times we say, what brings me joy? It's hearing again that people are successful. And I'm going to talk to Jessica a little bit more. I talk to Marjorie quite often, but I will definitely be talking to Jessica a little bit more to see how we can bring her over to other projects. I'm always looking for electrical suppliers. So when I look at that, being that advocate for the firms in the area, getting them work And it's not, I tell my staff and I tell people, it's not just about getting them work. It's also about building their capacity and ensuring that they're successful when they're on this work. I also say, but I don't want this to happen too soon, that my job is to work myself out of a job. So when we don't have to have goals or in contracts because it's happening organically, that would be the next step in terms of being a great advocate of a favorite aspect of this role.
Awesome. And Marjorie, I'll turn to you if you don't mind sharing with us what your favorite aspect of your role is.
You know, I think my favorite part, although it's very daunting at times, is that I feed over 100 people through the paychecks that I supply every single week. I take care of families, not only the employees, but that check also takes care of the families where their children can go to a good school, because we're very big on trying to hire locally if we can, if they're in the master category, because I have to have master carpenters, master masons, master electricians, plumbers, et cetera. It is what sometimes gets me back up in the morning, because running a business is very, very hard from a CEO point of view at times. And then when they come in and just bring me flowers because, I'm like, okay, I think I have 3 more minutes to keep pushing this envelope. So then I know that I'm doing God's work. And I just ask for patience and understanding, or I might have to take a couple of days off just to regroup. So that my perspective is not only just looking outside, but, how can I do things differently? Constantly always trying to improve who I am. I just finished graduating from the business school at Harvard because I wanted to see what's coming down the road next, from a business point of view, because if you don't see the landscape at least 4 years out, you could get caught in a buttonhole, and then, you just kind of falter at the top. And I'm sure everybody on the call knows what a bell curve is. You can go flat and fall off, or you can continue to rise and just become that individual that can move the business to the next level or pivot to something else. So that brings me joy. And then the other joy is that I get to speak around the country to women and men on how to start their businesses and how to be successful in it. Sometimes we have a lot of young businesses that are coming up who want to get frustrated and quit in 5 minutes. I said, no, this is a long game. And let's talk about what the long game looks like, because success doesn't come that great for anybody unless daddy has deep pockets and can just put you in a contract in 5 minutes. It's an earned step. So I get to go around the country and I do that. I'm very proud of that because they can take some of the points that I've had to navigate. And if they listen, they can have the next level of mentors that will come in and how to even prepare themselves to be around the best mentors possible. Because mentors don't have time to hold hands. They want to hear that you're ready so that they can continue to give you the advice. As I said, even when Glenessa talked earlier, I had so many mentors in Port Authority, including her, who said, hey, you want to do A, then you want to look at B, then you want to look at C, or give you the tools to where to go to get to the next level. And that is key, especially for women in this construction and real estate trade. So that's my 5 cents on that.
Can we get a hand clap for Harvard? That's awesome. The continuing education, even like at the high level that you're at, that's really inspiring. Thank you. So Jessica, if you'd like to share what your favorite aspect of your role is.
It's hard to go after Marjorie because when she was talking, to be able to make payroll and to support families, especially as a mother, and to take care of other people is paramount. Additionally, we have an offender reentry program. Always believe in second chances, and as long as a prospective new hire can meet certain marks and pass certain responsibilities or requirements, we hire ex-offenders, returning citizens, and to see the impact. We always have a Christmas party, and we took some time off with COVID, but we finally were able to have people back in person and to meet the families that have been impacted it makes me emotional at just to know that a parent had been incarcerated and was away from their family, but now is back with their family, but working, making above minimum wage, 401k, profit sharing, benefits, and able to reestablish a life and be there for their families. That to me is just transformational. My job is not just transactional, it's transformational. And
Yeah.
so when transactions can also transform lives, that's why I'm here. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing. And so the people, I also work with great people. My best friend from second grade is on our team. And so I love that I have someone that I can trust with my eyes closed in rush hour traffic who will be there for me and advocate for me. And I also, my dad is close to retirement, but I can always call him and ask him for questions, and my brother as well. So it's great to have good people that I work with. But the most important part is the impact on the people that work within my business.
That's awesome. That's awesome. That's really great. So I guess, Jessica, staying on you, a lot of times as we progress in our career and we move forward, a lot of times we will look back and we say, if we knew then what we know now, it would have made all the difference. So is there something you wish someone would have told you during your career journey that would have made all the difference?
Absolutely. I wish that someone would have told me, you belong here.
Hmm.
You belong here. It is very lonely to go into a room where you're the only one that looks like you.
Mhm.
And that goes back to your excellent question on imposter syndrome. But I remember being told that my hair in its natural state was distracting, right? And that made me feel, less than, or that made me feel like I need to change or do things differently. Or just comments that we've all have experienced that we're all recovering and being able to thrive despite. But that's why mentorship, as Marjorie said, is so important. When I talk to someone who is working on their confidence or starting in their career or in the middle of their career, I always make sure to take those minutes and let them know that they belong here. You got this job for a reason. You are smart. You are equipped. You are valuable. I want to know your opinion. Don't just tell me the answer is yes. Tell me why. Or give me feedback. If you disagree, please, I welcome feedback. So um, just the knowledge and the wherewithal to know that you belong here, it would be something that would impact me if I look back to my 20-year-old self or 30-year-old self.
Thank you for that.
Mhm.
Vanessa, do you have any take on this?
Um, I don't know, because I think that experiencing certain things kind of got me to the point that I am. I think that, probably personally, if I look back on it, it's like, okay, maybe you should have saved a lot more money when you were growing up or when you were starting out and not had as much of a good time. But even that actually added to my experience. Um, I think that there were certain things that I was glad that somebody challenged me on, or in some cases they said, you're not going, if you don't do this, then you're not going to do this, particularly with going back and getting my master's or getting my license. I recall when I first got out of school, especially engineering school, I was just tired. I did not want to see another book. And everybody said, well, if you don't go back to school to get your master's now, you'll never go back. Or if you don't get your license now, you will never go back. I made sure, because they said that I was going to do what was right for me in the time that it was right for me. I needed that break from there. So I think that, the main thing is those challenges that I did get, it made me look ahead and to look different and to make sure that I put forth a path for myself and that I knew what I wanted to accomplish on that.
Thank you. And Marjorie, if you would like to chime in.
And hopefully this doesn't sound too weird. My eyes were bigger than my understanding of being in the business world with all white males. And nobody prepared me for that.
Yeah.
And The other thing that I wish I knew before that I ran into is that if I just do God's work and I'm a good person, people will like me. And I had my butt handed to me 15 different ways because of that kind of integrity I had. And you're working with a bunch of people who don't even know what the word integrity means. So that reconciliation, I wish I had mentors because, you know, I might be a little older than some of the people that are on the call today. You know, my mother was like, you're having a bad day, I'll make you some fried chicken and some collard greens. You know, I'm like, no, Mom, I don't understand. You know, I'm in the middle of getting slapped around real hard and I don't know how to navigate. So if my earlier self, hey, you know, what are the pitfalls before I jump off this bridge? You know, not all of them, but there's enough information to find out this is what could happen if you jump off. Just be aware. And that was a very large pivot transformation for me. I lost my first $1 million because of that. They just didn't pay me, you know, called me every name in the book and just kept my money because I signed something called a partial waiver of lien. Just kept my money. Now I didn't realize that, you know, I don't have attorneys over here that were at high pitch level at $600 an hour to fight that. So those are the things that if I knew what I knew today, I would make sure that I spoke to people in very, very powerful positions on how did they navigate some of their ups and downs. What did they do? What attorneys do they use? What accountants do they use? Those are the things I had to kind of learn as I went. And I think that took up a little bit of time and very stressful at times. And business alone, with that or without that, is tough. So that's what I would have told myself 10 or 20 years ago. I still might have my $1 million, you know? Okay.
To have an extra. Well, I guess staying on that same kind of train of thought, Marjorie, can you tell us about a time in your career when you failed, but you were able to overcome whatever hurdle you may have been facing, and exactly how did you overcome?
Well, I'm going to give you the high road, the low road, and the crazy road. The job that I just told you about, there's been several, you know, and but I'll take this one for instance. This particular job was in Newark. I got caught up in the emotionalism of that was built. I was going to be the first African-American woman to build a charter school for a church. So I let the emotional side of me hear about building a charter school for the church. The people of color turned on me when I went to them to say I wasn't getting paid by the big boys. That's how I lost $1 million. They just told me, don't come back to the church, go away, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, well, Reverend, I don't care. They said you didn't pay your bills, get out of here. That's what happened with that. So what I did was cry a lot. I had to stop shopping at a place called Bamberger's at the time and Lord & Taylor's and start shopping at Kmart. I had to cut all my expenses. I had to lose a lot of my staff. I had to call all the banks up and put my loans on the back and just pay the interest up front and pay the principal on the back. I had retained deficits for 4 years. That was like $785,000. I couldn't get a loan. That's Port Authority pulled me in so that they would pay me every 15 days. So I started really sourcing those kinds of opportunities so that I could kind of get through, you know, one day at a time. And it took me 7 years, but I paid off every lawsuit, 22 of them. Was able to recoup the $1 million. And then the following year, I was able to finally hit the $5 to $6 million level after the 6 year of deep losses. And that takes a mental toughness that most people don't understand you must have in order to survive entrepreneurship. If you don't have the mental toughness, or you get into the place of non-forgiveness of yourself versus just doing the introspection with the right people to say, where did you go wrong and what can you improve and how you can get better? So I was able to navigate that. So now when I come in the room, they said, that's Marge Perry. And they're like, so Miss Perry, can we get you a chair? Yes, go get me a chair. And they don't try to pull those kinds of things anymore. So I was able to come back, but it took 6 years, and that's a long time to really recover from a deep loss, not being able to get lines of credit, not being able to move forward, not to do anything. But my employees really depended on me, and I wanted them paid every week. So I didn't pay myself for like 3.5 years. I mean, it was Campbell's soups and Spam. Okay, I just want you to know. I'm just saying. But I did it, and I'm very grateful. And I know it's with the help of, my spiritual power, God, that helped me get through one step at a time and getting more present. One of the things with type A personalities, we're always thinking, what's next? What's next? This forced me to be present and stay in the moment, because I would have lost it if I kept projecting outward. So I stayed present and in the moment. So that's how I was able to navigate that very tough situation.
That's awesome. And you got out on top at that.
Yes, I did. Yes, I did.
So Glenessa, if you can share a moment in time where you may have been viewed as a, I guess, failure, but you overcame whatever hurdle you were facing. And if you can, tell us about how you overcame.
Well, it's always at the forefront of my mind thinking about when I first started trying to become an engineer. It actually took me 6 years to get out of engineering school and transferred from one school to another. Had someone tell me that maybe you shouldn't be an engineer, maybe you should look at something else. And again, looking at that path where I wanted to go, even as a young person, that I knew this was what I wanted to do. And having to reset to see.
She froze.
Yeah, I think she may have froze. We'll give her a couple of seconds to see if she comes back in. If not, we'll move to Jessica for the time being.
I hope her computer unfreezes.
Yeah, me too. She's dropping gems, all of you.
Yeah, she is. She is. For me, being bankable, when I first started, getting a line of credit was not something that was easy. But to be able to grow my personal net worth and to be able to be a bankable, valuable member of my banking community was a big accomplishment for me. Because the bank will not bank to everybody. So I do encourage everyone on this call to make sure that you are watching your credit, that you are conscious of your cash flow, conscious of your liabilities, making sure that your balance sheet is up to date so that you can be bankable. It's so important to be bankable. Additionally, a big achievement for me was being able to pass the bar exam. I am not someone that can just read something very quickly and then take an exam and nail it. I need to take some time. I am someone that has to work really hard to do well in school. And so being able to go to law school, pass the bar exam, graduate from law school with honors was a huge accomplishment for me because I had some personal issues that I was overcoming with my health. But despite those barriers, to still be able to achieve that was a big accomplishment for me. Oh, Nakia, you're on mute.
I was like, yeah, I felt you on the bar exam part.
Oh, yeah.
So that's definitely a great accomplishment.
That's hard. Well done to you too.
Oh, thank you. So I guess we'll stay with you, Jessica. So if you can tell us, what do you think is the most important attribute of a successful leader?
To be a leader, you have to, in my opinion, you have to be led, right? If a leader is just a dictator, if a leader is just pointing fingers and not a listener, if a leader is not willing to be led, then that's a problem. If a leader chooses to be the smartest person in the room, that's also a problem. I like to have people around me who will challenge me, who are smarter than me, who know more than I do, because that is what makes me, in my opinion, a better leader. And also, a leader needs to be coachable, right? We can always learn more, especially as Marjorie was saying, going back to get a degree, there's so much more to learn. So being able to know you haven't reached your ceiling, that you still can do more, you can still learn more, so that you can lead better, is something that I would say makes a good leader.
Thank you. Marjorie, what do you think is the most important attribute of a successful leader?
Deep listening. Become a very, very deep listening. One of the things that we as women have, we have that sixth sense, and we can read situations better. I find that I don't lead my employees. I let them lead themselves, and I coach them. That's the environment. You know, what do you think? 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I think in the early days, everybody, oh, don't do what I say, not as I do. And that doesn't work. So I find that my leadership style is, listen, let's powwow together. I make sure I keep an empathy mind. I try to make sure that I understand that we're better as a team than versus who's in front and who's in back. I try to not only reward my stars, but I try to bring up the individuals who may not be the star, and sometimes put them in front of the star so the star can calm down with their ego. Because sometimes the people, some of the guys think they're smarter than the average bear. And my door is always open. You know, we are, I think that's what's helped me to be collaborative with everybody that's on my team. So stay open, be kind, be gentle, be firm when it's necessary, and to make recommendations with the understanding that those recommendations need to be looked at. And we make sure that we have a pivot box too. You know, why didn't we make our numbers? Why didn't we make something? And then we come back and we work on it together to see for improvement. Because sometimes you have to lead, sometimes you have to push people to the side, and sometimes people have to go. So, you know, you have to balance all three acts at the same time.
Yeah, thank you. So Marjorie, you know, as the successful leader that you are, being the president and CEO of MZM, what would, in your view, be considered your greatest accomplishment?
I have mentored over 37 young women through my business on the engineering side, real estate development, and structural engineers. I think that's just huge. The other one is that I've donated $250,000 to my alma mater at NJIT for any young person of color that wants to get their STEM degrees, preferably women. And I'll tell you a small story. They wanted me to take a C student. I said, I don't want a C student in STEM. Okay, I need a B student in STEM because it's tough enough their second and third year, especially if they're going in on the structural side or if they're going in on the civil engineer side. So that's, scholarships are very, very important for me. That's how I got through school. Someone had to help me pay for my education. And in STEM, we have to get more of our young ladies and men of color in STEM. That's where we are these days. So there's just no getting around that, no matter what. So that's my greatest accomplishment, having the Marjorie A. Perry Theater named after me at the university.
Okay, thank you very much. So we're going to wrap up shortly, but I would like to just go around the panel and, you know, hear really quickly, what's next for all of you? So we can start with Glenessa. We see that she's rejoined us.
Yes, I don't know what happened. It just cut out. But in terms of what's next, you know, again, in terms of my current role, is really continuing to increase the usage of MBEs and WBEs. You know, again, that's my passion, and especially for women of color, for Black women, and women of color, continuing to increase the usage there. We see, when I look at the availability of firms in the region, in the Port Authority area, especially when I look at Black businesses, we know that there's a large number of businesses there, but when we look at the utilization of it, there's a big gap. So my goal for this year, continuing, is to decrease that gap, to continue to increase their numbers, to ensure that they are successful in building their capacity, as I mentioned a few times earlier. For me, I think it's to look at certain areas of my life to ensure that I am paying attention to those areas that Marjorie mentioned earlier, ensuring that I'm paying attention to my spirituality, paying attention to my mental health, paying attention to my diet and my physical health, because I think with that, for me, as well as the people around me, whether it's my family, my friends, or the people that I work with, I know that I have to ensure that I'm taking care of myself in order to be successful, to be a trailblazer, and continue, again, to support those others in my circle.
Thank you. So yeah, Marjorie, if you want to give us a 30-second spiel on what's next for you.
Well, I don't know if Glenessa knows this, but I'm going to be one of the first women of color. We just won the Port Authority project 9 years as a program manager. So that is really, really huge. I mean, that's a 9-year program project. And I was just selected on the team. So I didn't know if you know that, Glenessa, but I'm sure you did, but. So going to program manager is great because it eases down on the day-to-day and takes you up to another level. And that's where the generational wealth can continue to progress, because those are the projects we have to get on, the 9-year ones, not the transactional ones. It's the 9 and the 15 years, because now you can build capacity from doing that kind of movement. So thank you, Ms. Glenessa. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
That's awesome. And lastly, Jessica, if you want to give us a 30-second blurb on what's next for you and the Will Group.
Why do I have to always go after Marjorie? I'm going to be calling Miss Glenessa and Miss Marjorie so that I can spend more time with them. I am so grateful for this panel because I feel very inspired. So I'm going to be calling, that's what's next. I'm going to be calling you too. So please answer my phone calls. And I also have, every year I just do 1 year, 3 year, 5 and 10 year goals. So my 1 year goal is to create 50% more jobs, and also to grow my bottom line. So those are just some monetary goals that I have for my company, but job creation is also key, and to sustain and have generational wealth for my children's children, and also, of course, staying healthy. So those are my goals.
And I forgot to say thank you again for inviting me on this panel, and thanks to Daniel. I guess he's out there somewhere.
Yes, thank you, Daniel.
Yeah,
Thank you, Daniel.
Yes. So thank you.
This has been amazing, insightful, and wonderful. If anyone in the audience has any questions, feel free to email Kier, and we will be sending out the contact information for all of our panelists, so you can connect with them via LinkedIn. Now we're going to have a message from our president. Devon, take it away.
Thank you, Nakia, and sending a virtual congratulations to all of you. Great stories, great things that I've heard. And good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Again, my name is Devon Prello, Director of Project Management at Macro, Managing Principal of Prello Development Group, which is a certified MBE, as well as newly appointed President of the Council for Urban Real Estate. I want to say that I am truly honored to take on this role and look to uphold the position in the same regard as past presidents. I want to thank Glenessa, Jessica, and Marjorie as the speakers, and Nakia as the moderator, as we continue to celebrate successful Black women in our industry. In addition to everything mentioned earlier, I want to emphasize that Cure actively practices true inclusion by tirelessly advocating for underrepresented professionals within the larger real estate community and industry. For those that are unfamiliar with Cure, for more than 32 years, Cure has been a champion of social change while providing high impact programming such as this, offering educational and mentorship platforms, as well as promoting community and economic development. I continue to be excited about the future of this organization as I was 13 years ago when I began serving on internal committees. I think one of my goals as Cure's current president is to adequately fundraise and develop relationships to increase sponsorship opportunities with some of our corporate sponsors. I say that because Cure is a nonprofit, volunteer-based organization which relies on such funding to maintain our operations. I say that also to say that donations of any kind are always welcome. And I look forward again to serving you all over the next year and finding opportunities to collaborate. On behalf of our board, again, I'd like to thank our current members, sponsors, corporate partners for their continued support. And lastly, if interested in becoming a member of this wonderful organization, please feel free to send us a message in the chat or reach out to cureny.com. Other than that, enjoy the rest of your evening. I look forward to seeing you and hearing from you again. Thank you very much for your time. Nikki, I'll throw it back to you. Otherwise, have a good day. Have a good evening.
Okay, all that's left to say is it's been real. Thank you, ladies, for all the gems you've dropped tonight. And I look forward to collaborating with you all in the future. Have a great night, everyone.
Thank you. Good night.